Welcome back. So in our last video, I show how to create the Slimer character from Ghostbusters step by step. So we ended up with this guy in ZBrush. So you are welcome to check this out. And the point at which we stopped is just sculpting. I thought it would be fun to do a quick follow-up video and maybe show how we can take this and add some PolyPaint to this guy, right, in ZBrush. And then also bring it into Maya for like a pretty rendering shot. So if that's something you are interested in, I think this should be a fun video. Now, if you don't have a character that you actually did not end up following my video from the previous video, don't worry, I'll just give you this character so you can just download them from Sketchfab, import him into ZBrush, and if you choose to, you can follow me along and we can kind of be at the same spot. All right, so to get started, let's say you have your character, or maybe you imported the file from Sketchfab. How do we move forward? So one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and, you know what, let me actually merge my character into one. So when you when you download your version, it should probably look like this. It'll just be all merged together, right? Okay, really cool. So the first step is going to be at this point the entire character is 3 million points, right? Now we are not going to create an animation for this, so we don't really need to worry about retopology, doing Z-remesh or anything. But 3 million points is way too many points for Maya. It's just not necessary to hold all this data. So for that reason, let's just dial this down. And so if you are working on your own character, you're gonna have to do this step. If you, once again, downloaded this guy that I'm looking at, then you can skip this step. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to Z plugin, go to Decimation Master, and I'm gonna click on Preprocess Current. What that's going to do is it's going to sort of analyze all of the volume and edges and shapes of the entire mesh, and you can see that's being done right now. And once it's done, we can actually reduce the total active points dramatically while maintaining the overall shape. Now, for anyone who is new to ZBrush, this is not going to work if you are creating a game character or you want an animated character. This is just to take a pretty screenshot of a still mesh, right? So what I'm going to do is, now since it's done, let's go ahead and switch it to 20%. By default, it's set to 20%. And I don't currently have any PolyPaint or anything like that, but keep UVs. I don't have UVs on this guy either, so I'm just going to simply say decimate current. And you just saw it went from 3 million points to 609,000, okay? And if I turn my polyframe on, you can see what that looks like. If I auto group, you can see that all the pieces that are individual, that are not merged together, right? Those are going to be polygrouped with their own color, which is really cool. All right, well, 609,000 is definitely something we can deal with. And you can see the overall shape and the look of the character didn't really change. You can't really even tell that this was dialed down, right? It's still very high resolution looking, nice and smooth, right? And this is also a great trick for if you're baking textures in Substance Painter. This could be your high poly version, right? All right, so now let's talk about poly painting. Let's say I want to color my body green, right? So to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's just simply choose a material that we like, and maybe something a little more shiny would be better. So basic 1, basic 2. Let's just go with this basic 2, right? It's a little more slimy, I think. And let's start from the beginning. So how do we paint the mesh green? Well, all we need to do is just simply select green from the material here. And what I want to do is I want to first select a dark green, kind of a base color. So that's going to be, and you can decide what you like, but for the base green, you know, the parts that are going to be inside kind of a darker areas of the character, I want it to be really dark. So I'm going to go with this green here. I am going to be in my standard brush. I'm going to come up here and turn on RGB because I'm doing painting, and I'm done sculpting, so I'm going to turn these off. I don't need to sub or add. I just want the RGB. I'm going to make sure my RGB is 100%. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to say fill object. Okay. As soon as I press fill object, and by the way, this is located in color fill object. So if you go to color, you will see fill object is right there. All right. So once we press this little button, you can see that a little icon has appeared showing us that this mesh is now painted in. Okay. Well, that is not very exciting because we are now interested in creating some kind of a gradient for the lighter parts of the model, right? So for that, let's do a trick. Let's just go to something called masking. And in masking, we have all these cool options. One of them, of course, is we have curvature, just like we do in Substance Painter. We also have peaks and valleys. Let's try this first. And I'm just gonna leave this as is, 4x25, and just do mask peaks and valleys. Okay, and then when you click on that, you should see something very similar. Right now, if we like this, we can choose a different green, so maybe like a lighter green. And what we could do is we can hold on Control and click to flip the mask. And now we can do fill object. And now if we get rid of the mask, you can see what has happened. So it kind of created this crazy looking texture for us, which is not very exciting, but we didn't have to go in and piece by piece make this look like skin, right? It kind of chose this really wild looking pattern for us. Now, let's say I think this is a little too much or too crazy, right? Let's say I want to kind of blend this in a little more. Well, I could do that very easily by just simply, let's just turn down the RGB to something like 5, and let's start pressing fill object until this blends in a little bit. So I can do fill object a few times. I'm just going to keep going until this kind of looks somewhat decent. So I like this. It starts to kind of create this interesting detail in the skin. And try really hard not to pay attention to nails, teeth, gums, eyes, or the tongue. We're only doing the body, right? Only pay attention to the body. All right, so that's cool. Let's see what else we got. So we have curvature. Let's try that. If I press mask by curvature, it didn't really do much. Let me do a little more strength. And if I do Control and drag, I can reset it, right? And let me try this one more time and see what is happening. I am not really seeing much results. I'm gonna go to 100% and do it again. All right, and I can see that it is trying to mask out the curvature, right? But it's actually doing it in a very subtle way. But let's take advantage of that. I'm gonna press Control and click to flip my mask, and now I can really see the curvature being, being a little bit lighter, right? Let's go ahead and make it really dark, like super dark, almost black, like a dark green. And let's do fill object, okay? And then obviously we need to put our intensity back up to, let's go back to 100 and do fill object, okay? Now I'll do Control and drag. And now we can see that all the crevices, all the deep areas of the mesh were painted this dark green, right? And again, ignore all this, just look at the skin. That's pretty wild, right? Because we haven't done any work, it's all doing it for us automatically. So the point of this video is I'm showing you the power of masking and how it's creating this random hand-painted look that is absolutely beautiful, and we haven't even done anything. All right, that's pretty amazing. Let's try a couple more. Let's go back to masking. We've tried curvature, we did peak and valleys. Let's do cavity, and let me just do Let's switch this to something like, I guess let's try 100. All right, so now it's really getting the areas that are really deep, right? Maybe I don't like this. Maybe I want to be a little more blurry. I'll do 60% and do that. All right. Now you can see that that's also really cool. But maybe I don't want it to be so sharp. So how do I smooth this out? Well, it's just masking, right? So I can hold on Control key and click on this, and you can see how it smoothed it out. Now if I do Control and click to reverse it, I can do Fill Object once again, make sure it's 100%, do Fill Object, and do Control Drag to get rid of my mask. And check this out, we have this really awesome looking skin, right? And this, from this point on, if I wanted to, I can maybe do like a lighter green, turn this back down to maybe 10, and let's say I want to blend this in a little more. So I could start pumping the color through the mesh at 10% value, and just do this a few times, and you can see how it's kind of blending in. So you can decide if you like that or not. But I think that's pretty cool, right? All automatically without much of any kind of work. So let's go do this. Let's go to our standard brush. Let's grab something like, I'll do dots, and let me do soft alpha. And what I would like to do next is, let's just select even lighter green. And let's say I want to hand paint some of this stuff. So if I press my symmetry on, I'm going to leave it 10%. What I could do is I can just very gradually, let me turn off my lazy mouse. And maybe I need this a little stronger. What I could do is, you can see I can start painting in some of the areas of the mesh that maybe I want to be a little bit lighter. Maybe some of these creases or really high points of the mesh, right, could be, can have a little highlight. And very quickly I can go around and just kind of hand paint all of that stuff. Maybe there's some here, let me add some to his cheeks, and maybe his top of his head, and essentially just try to find any places that are raised, right? Raised up kind of. And I'll just say it one more time, ignore the tongue and the teeth, I'm just doing kind of the skin. Okay, we can do the same thing in the back, just maybe do something like that. All right, do all these. And look how very quickly I started creating something really interesting. And let's say a little here. And let's say I don't know what your painting job looks like, but let's say you did a little bit too much or too little. Well, don't worry, keep in mind, you can always go back to green, change the RGB to something really tiny like 5 or 6, and fill the object. And that's going to keep blending everything that you're doing, right? So a really cool and powerful workflow to create incredible hand-painted effects. Awesome. All right, let's say I'm happy with the skin. If you're not, you can do more, right? You can even do spray color, and you can decide, let's do this alpha here. Let's just do something like that. And if we turn this up, we can start adding even more, and you can see what that looks like. It's kind of breaking the paint up even more, right? Let me turn this up so you can see a little better. Okay, so it's creating the skin looking stuff where it's kind of breaking the material, right? And in just a matter of seconds, I created something really fascinating and very custom looking, right? And then if I wanted, I can go back and just add a little more. All right, so now I think I'm pretty satisfied. It's looking interesting enough, right? Let's go ahead and move on to the next piece, which is going to be the tongue. And for the tongue, because if I turn my polyframe on, I can see that this is its own polygroup. So I could do Control Shift and click, right? to, let's go ahead and mask it, and to do Control Shift and click again, and do Control Shift and click to reverse the mask. Now just the tongue is selected, right? So let's decide on the color of the tongue. So maybe it could be kind of a, you know, kind of like a pink creature's mouth color, something I think like this is pretty good. I like this, I think it's great. Let's do 100% for this and do fill object, okay? And now if we wanted to add some highlights, we can do something a little bit lighter, right? And let's just maybe add some, turn this back down. Let's just break this up a little. And we just have to decide what makes sense. If you do too much or too little, again, don't worry, just simply come back here and just kind of fill the object up. And you can see how now you have kind of a highlight with a little bit darker, right, element there. I think that's pretty cool. Let's do let's do the gums. So I'm gonna do Control Shift and do the gums. All right, so that's pretty good. Let's fill this one. Let's do Control Shift and click on that. Fill that. That's great. Let's see what else we got. Let's maybe do the teeth next, right? So for the teeth, I'm gonna go with kind of a yellowish, kind of a rope, almost like a rope color. So I'll do Control Shift and click, fill, and let's just very quickly kind of do that to all of them. And of course I could just simply hide them all. I could do that. You know, anything that I want that color, I can just keep clicking on it and hiding it. Let's just even click on these so we're not confused. And let me hide all of these. Alright, so now what I did is I went around and I selected all the pieces that I want to be this color, and they're all hidden except I guess for some reason forgot these. Alright, so now we got everything, right? Well, unless we want the eyes, let's try the eyes as well. Why not? Alright, so let's say all this is gone. Now how do I flip the right now it's invisible. So if I do Control Shift and drag, I can flip the visible versus invisible, and it kind of flips over. And now if I do fill object, all these pieces are you know, I can fill them with this paint. Do Control Shift and click to bring everything back, and voila, you have the nails, the teeth are painted different color, which is really cool. Now let's decide if we maybe want to add, you know, the eyes, maybe make them a little red. Let's isolate these and do the same thing, Control Shift and drag to flip them, bring them back. And let's say I want to color the inside of them, right? So for that, I'm just going to do dots, alpha 1. Let me just do like a red color. Maybe he's kind of a, you know, he's angry, right? He's trying to scare you. So let's paint the inside of the pupils red. Let me turn off my symmetry. Let's do something like that. And let me paint this guy here as well. All right, so that's pretty spooky. If we wanted to blend that in, we can hold on the Shift key and just blend this in a little more. Okay, let's see if we like that. You can decide if you like that, but I think I'll go with mine. You know, I think red is cool. Makes it feel a little more kind of mischievous. You know, he's really trying to scare you. And let's see. Before we bring this into Maya, now keep in mind in Maya, when we add lighting and do Arnold rendering, there's going to be some cool shadows and ambient occlusion and all that stuff. So that's all going to look really cool. But if you wanted to break up some of this stuff, you know, like these teeth are really in your face, right? They're so prominent. Maybe we can break them up. So if I hover over this and press C, that's going to select that color again. And let's say I want, let's say I want to make some parts of these teeth to be lighter and some darker. So let me just go a bit lighter. And now if I start, let's do something like this. We'll just add like a little highlight to the front of it. And by doing that, you can see what I'm doing. It's kind of creating, so it's keeping everything else kind of dark and yellow. And then the tops of the teeth can have a little break in the color, right? So maybe they're just a little bit different. All right, just enough to give some variation. Now, the only last thing I would like to do still, and let's do a quick preview just for fun to see how it even looks here in ZBrush. So it's already looking pretty cool. Now, I would like to also, let's do Control Shift and click on this mesh. I would like to also color the inside of the mouth. So actually, let me hover over this, press C to select this color, then do Control Shift and click on the mesh, right? And let me paint the inside of the mouth by just using standard, right? So let me just go through really quick, and I'm trying to figure out if I want to do symmetry or not. I think I do, right? It's still symmetrical, which is great. And I'm not going to go too far to the front. I just really want the inside of the mouth to be kind of this skin color, right? So let's do something like that. Again, don't worry about going too close to the edges. And let's color all of that. Okay. Control Shift and click, bring everything back. Let's check it out. Yeah, I think that works. All right, awesome. So of course you could do spend more time coloring this, but at this point, let's say I want to bring it into Maya, right? How do I do that? Well, what I could do is I can just simply say export, and let me give him a name. So I'll say Slimer, and I'll say decimated. And one very important thing to keep in mind, if you want your PolyPaint to carry over into Maya, you cannot use OBJ. You must use FBX for that, right? So let's find FBX. And now let's go ahead and say save. All right, now the other important thing to remember is that the bin mode will for FBX will also not carry the PolyPaint. So you want to make sure that it's on this mode, ASCII. So that's important. I'm going to leave my normals at 100%. That's fine. Selected, right? It's just I don't really have many subtools. I just have one, so that doesn't really matter. Let's just say OK. All right, so subtool exported. Let's go ahead and jump into Maya. All right, once it imports, it kind of comes in super small. I would like to make it much larger so I can see it better. So I'm just going to simply scale this up. And of course, you will have to do the same. Let's go ahead and move this up. And now we have this really cool creature sitting in our grid in Maya, right? Amazing. Now, what would be the steps to get him rendered properly with PolyPaint in Maya, right? So how do we do that? Step number one, I'm going to select it, right click, and go to assign favorites. I'm just going to do AI standard surface. So that's going to assign the Arnold material to this guy. All right, once we've done that, let's just select our mesh. And now we want to go to Arnold. And we want to click on something called Export Vertex Colors. Now, what is Vertex Colors? Vertex Colors is another name for PolyPaint. So Maya is calling it Vertex Colors and ZBrush is calling it PolyPaint. But as soon as you click on this, now Maya knows that this model right here, right, is holding PolyPaint. And it also knows that we are interested in rendering it. So that's important to understand. We also want to go to Mesh Controls, and we want to copy this right here, which is the color set name. And it's simply called color set 0. So I'm just going to select it, do Control C. All right, once we copied that, let's right click on our guy, go to Material Attributes, and we need to get to AI Standard Surface Color. So I'm going to put this all the way up, and I want to click on this, And in here, I'm gonna go to Arnold. Let's type in AI user data. And there it is, it's the second one. So AI user data color. Let's go ahead and click on that. And all right, and then for the attribute, I'm going to do Control V and press Enter. All right, fabulous. What is the next step? Well, the next step, once we told Maya the vertex colors and the names and we wired everything, you can look in your outliner. Well, we don't have any lights, right? So this is not going to render because there's no lights. Let's bring some lights in. I'm gonna go to Arnold, Lights. I'm gonna drop a sky dome. And let's select an HDR image that we can use as our environment image, right? To have some kind of lighting and reflections. Now, if you are new and you don't have HDR images, just go to Google, type in free HDR backgrounds, and you will see many different options, right? So I'm gonna grab some on my end. Let me just delete this, go to File. And I'm just gonna select one that I think is gonna work. I think this is good, right? So something like this. You got blue sky, nice background image. I'm gonna say open. All right, so now for me to see what's going on here, I need to go to Arnold Renderer, and let's take a look and see what do we got. So you can see that the color is being recognized, right, by Maya from ZBrush, which is amazing. But a couple things. One, I would like this to be a little more vivid. It's a little washed out. So we need to adjust the gamma settings for this. Another thing, I don't really want to see this kind of a blurry background. So I'm going to click on my sky dome, and in the visibility, I'm going to turn off the camera. And now I just have this black color. If you press play right here, as you spin, your character is going to update in real time, and it's going to use the HDR image lighting to light your character. So that's looking pretty sweet. It's already looking pretty cool, but we can make it look better by going to, let's go to our Hypershade. And in here, let's find the material that we created for our character, which is right here. And you know what? We never named it, so why not call him AI for Arnold Slimer? This is why I know that's going to be his dedicated color. All right, so now check this out. If you select this, right, and then you click on this little button right here called Input Connections, it's going to pull up all the input connections for this material. And you can currently see that the base color is being driven by our vertex colors, right? We don't really have anything else. We don't have any other maps. You know, like in Substance Painter, you would have PBR textures and maps, so you would have many different ones being plugged in. In our case, we don't. We just have one, which is the vertex color. But I would like to intercept this connection and create a correction. So I'm going to select this line by just dragging and selecting it. Press delete. Okay. Right click, say create node. And in here, let's do GAMM, gamma correction. Let's go ahead and click on that. Once we do, we can close this and check this out. We created this custom node called gamma correct, right? Now, if we take this vertex color and click on this little red dot and drag it into this red dot, we could do we can create a connection. And then the out value, let's take this and plug it back into the base color. Okay, so voila, we got our color back, but now we have this middle point. Now, if you click on it, you can see right here, you have gamma values, right? And they're all set to 1 right now. If you set them to 0.5 for each one, let me do that real quick. That's going to amplify your colors and bring in some of those beautiful masking details that we were doing. And you can clearly see the image looks much, much, much better. All right, so now we can do more fun stuff. Let's go ahead and right click, go to Material Attributes. And in here, let's just adjust a few things. You know, you can decide if you want them to be this shiny. If not, roughness is the thing you want. So if I say it, you know, if I set it to 0, he's going to be, you can see what that looks like, right? And then if I switch it to 1, now because he is a Slimer, honestly, I like as much slime as possible. Bring it on, man. So let's just turn this way up, or way down, I guess. Let's do something like 0.19. I think that's pretty cool. And keep in mind, right now we just have a sky dome light, so we don't even have any lights in this scene, and it already looks this good, right? That's pretty amazing. So before we drop more lights in, let's see what else can we do. Let's go to, well, I guess we're already here. Let's go to, let's see what else we got. So we have roughness, we know that. We have subsurface scattering, which is really cool. Now if I start dialing this up, it's going to at first look kind of strange, but it does look, think about, you know, this being skin, right? If I turn this up, and if I change the subsurface color from white to, let's say, kind of a green, right? That's going to give you, or maybe even like lime. That's gonna give you an illusion. Subsurface meaning it's underneath the surface, so it's almost like a translucent skin kind of thing. So normally, if this was a human character, you would do something red. And honestly, we should do the same actually. So it's gonna give him a little warmth to his skin, right? And as you pump up the weight, you can see what it's doing. It's bringing that redness from underneath the green skin up and making this really incredible effect, right? That you can control. You can make it blue, you can make it green or yellow. And in my case, I think I'm gonna go with kind of a orangey, you can decide what you like, but I think this is cool. What else we got? We got coat. Now coat is nice. It's gonna give you kind of almost like an additional slime feel. So if I pump this up, you see what it's doing. It's bringing all these contrast values up and really making it look like he's slimy. So this is great for like a car paint, or in our case, a slime character. This is pretty much perfect. So lots of awesome things to play with, right? So I'm gonna actually bring this up. I like this. Maybe it's a little too much. And right now the white is all the way up. If you think that's too much, we can bring this down a little. But I kind of like it. I think it's great. Same with the roughness. Right now it's all the way, almost to 0, right? If we do 100, you can see how it's spreading a little bit different on the surface. I honestly kind of like this low as well, so I'm pretty happy with all this. If you wanted to make them glow, you could do emission. So let's give them a little emission, and let's make the emission, I'm thinking obviously lime green, right? So we could do something like that. And now you might say, well, that looks terrible. And you might be right. But that's because we didn't really turn on post-processing yet, right? So let's do this. Let's go to our settings and go to Arnold Renderer, and a couple things you need to know, right? So if you want your image to be super beautiful, and assuming you have a decently fast computer, the higher these values are, the nicer your image will be. So if you're making a film, you want to crank these up, short film. If you're just doing something casual, maybe just turn them up a little bit, something like that. But so the higher these values are, the nicer this image will render, but the longer it will take. So you can already see that it's taking much longer. I just went a little bit. Keep all of that in mind. Now, if you click on the sky dome light, there's also something called samples. And samples are also important for the shadows, for example, right? You can see that that's going to create a less of a noisy image. Right now it's super noisy. But if I turn this to like 4 or 5, let's just do 4, it's going to give me a nice rendering. Alright, so here's my result. I'm looking at this. I feel like I probably overdid it. he's a little too slimy. Let me tone this down a little bit. At least the code is a little too much, I feel. Let me do something like this. Okay, I think that might be better. But again, to turn on the actual emission, the glowing, you got to go to Imagers, and you want to add something called lens effect. So that's kind of a bloom post-processing effect. And now if you select this in attribute editor, you're going to have something called strength. If you start pumping this up, all right, so as you can see, as you're dialing these, it's going to give you all these different effects. So I'm trying to find something that makes sense for my guy, right? So maybe, so I guess something like that I think would make sense, and that's how you can do glowing. But honestly, in this case, I'm going to remove this. The reason being is because I really just want to focus on, rendering the skin. And if I personally was doing this, I don't think I would actually use the post-processing in Maya. I would probably render out a sequence as a PNG sequence and then do some post effects in something like After Effects or Premiere. And there you can do, you could do flame and like movie post-processing stuff. But in this exercise, we're kind of just playing with just the still image rendering, right? So let's not get too crazy and introduce other stuff. We could add a denoise, so let's just maybe do that. But you also have color curves, which is going to give you cool options as well. You have the red channel, green, and blue, and you can see this is a post-processing effect, right? So if I start moving this around, once it's done rendering, it's going to adjust the color of the image. I can make it darker or lighter. So you can see as I start dragging it, this is going to create different results and different, whatever you like. So I can, almost like Photoshop, right? So again, I'm not really interested. I just wanted to show you that that's there. I'm going to remove this one. All right, so while we are doing our last step, let me turn this back down. I don't want to have a long waiting time, but what I would like to do next is let's just add some more lights to this scene, right? So how do we do that? If I go to Arnold, I can drop in something called area light. Now, when you are putting in area lights, one thing you could do is make them a little bit larger, but literally think of this as like a movie set. So you usually have, depending on what kind of scene you're shooting, but normally you would have, for something like this, maybe a 3-point light. Okay, so that would be kind of the basics, right? So let's just maybe create one here, and before we start copying it to, maybe we want to do like a rim light, so there's like a strong light behind the character. We can do that, but before we do that, let's just adjust some values on this guy, which is, let's see, in the attribute editor, let's pump up the samples, just like we did with the sky dome light. That's important. And maybe we can change it to a disk. Sometimes the reflection, if something is super reflective, you don't want to have squares reflecting. So sometimes being round is a little more natural. And if you want to see what the light looks like, you could turn on the render. Let's turn that back on. And in here, let's say I want to know what is this light looking like? How is this affecting the mesh, right? Right now, it seems like the sky dome is the only one that's working. So there is something called a light editor. Now, if you click on the light editor, this is going to give you full control of all the lights in the scene. So I can click on the sky dome and I can turn it off for 1 second. And now I can see how this one is affecting this. So it's not doing a very good job. So I need to increase the intensity. All right, so let's increase the intensity by a lot. So let's do something like, 50 or 5,000. Not enough. Let's do, I'm going to do 50,000. It's a little bit better. And you might ask yourself, why is this value so large? That's based on your units, right? So, if it's set to meters or millimeters, that's going to be based on the units of the scene. So in my case, by default, I just need large values. So let me switch this to 9. And let me add another 0. And there you go. So now this actually looks like it's working and there's some light coming in, right? Now that is much better. Let me take this and let me make a rim light out of it. So to do this, I'm going to switch this to world view, go to the top, and let me just simply duplicate this, right? So how do I duplicate it? I can select it in my outliner and just do Control D. And now light 2 was created. And I'm in the axis world orientation. So I can take this guy, put him in the back. And again, just keep in mind, keep this in world. Let's just put this back here and let's use this as our rim light. And if we want to see what that looks like, we could see, check this out, you have this really awesome light coming in from the side, right? And you can decide if you want it on the right or the left, but I just wanted to show you kind of the basics, right? So that would be a 2-point light so far. And if you wanted to do a third one, you know, you could do, let's do one more. We'll select this first one again, do Control D. Light 3 was created. I'm gonna go back to this view and let me move this and rotate it. And let's maybe the third light would be right here, right? So you can see what that looks like. And normally, you know, this one doesn't need to be so strong, so I can dial this down. So a lot, right? Let's do something like that. And maybe, you know, he's looking at the camera this way, so maybe I should position it like this. And very quickly, you can just take your time and decide how you like your lighting, what kind of environment you want. But from here, if I turn my sky dome back on, I can also, of course, control the intensity. Maybe I don't want it to be fully at 1. And now I can really start kind of dialing this in and trying to figure out what do I like. I can even change the colors of these, right? So my second light was the rim light. So maybe, you know, you can decide if you want it to be white, or maybe there's a fire behind them, so you want it red, right? So you can do something like that, so it's a little more scary. A lot of fun, right? I'll switch it back to white, and this is going to be our first light. That's going to be the light that's right in his face. So you can decide if you want to change the intensity. Maybe it's a little intense. I can bring this down or bring this back up, whatever you like. But I think this is as far as I should take this video. I kind of covered all the all the basics of taking the character from ZBrush, polypainting it, setting up beautiful epic lights, and creating incredible scenes. All right, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you learned something new, and I'll see you guys in our next video.